Not often is it that I end up going cinemas these days, but when I do, most of the time it happens to be for an MCU film, which I know the MCU is like dead and buried at this point. That's the best way I can really describe it as. And it's an honest shame, and it's why I got into anime later on. But one of the films that I did go to see earlier on, literally about like less than 48 hours ago, was 28 years later, The Bone Temple, the fourth installment in the 28 I was gonna say 28 years later series, but I realized that let's say 28 franchise perhaps. But yes, there was obviously 28 days later, 28 weeks later, and then 28 years later, and then 28 years later, The Bone Temple. This one was quite an honest surprise for me. I watched it just the night before my probability exam in uni, and I didn't really come with much expectations. I heard that it was good, but I generally have a thing where sometimes people say that it's good, but I think otherwise. So I wanted to just go into this with a fresh mind. I quite liked the 28 Years Later film, the first one. So I had decent expectations going into the second one. With that aside, let's actually go into my thoughts regarding 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple. I generally found 28 Years Later to be quite good. I didn't really like the second half as much as the first half, and I've seen a lot of people say the same thing, because the second half felt a bit too generic, too a bit adventurous, and it kind of disconnects from the first half. The first half felt dark and gritty, how it felt to be like in a survivor camp 20 years later and how people survived, and then the second half kind of felt disjointed to that. Spike going off by himself and trying to go through the post-apocalyptic Scotland, following the rage virus going all over the land. But I didn't complain too much. I know I generally tend to find some things generic, and I do get a bit bored by it. But I was still entertained, to say the least. But the first film out of these two series in the 28 Years Later series, the first film in that generally ended a bit weirdly, with Jimmy and his fingers coming in. So I had a feeling that there was going to be another film. But you know, the marketing for this is genuinely horrible. I will say, for the first film, it was great. For the second film, 28 Years Later, The Bone Temple, I didn't even know about it until a week before it was releasing. I was like, wait, is another film coming out? Hell yeah, I'm going cinemas to watch it. Yeah, and my dad, he's really big on on this series. He wanted me to come along, so I was like, yeah, I'm down for it. It was honestly quite a surprise. First of all, seeing how it literally left off right where it ended. So you see how Spike joins Jimmy Crystal and his fingers, and Jimmy and the fingers in general are genuine nutcases. It took me a while to clock that they were Satanists. I'll be so real. I should have clocked it, like the upside down cross and everything, but yeah, I didn't realize that they were Satanists until he said it out loud. That they were Satanists. That was a bit embarrassing of me to not to clock, but it's fine. But yeah, just seeing Jimmy Crystal just going around being a genuine menace to society, like inflicting pain upon people. I generally hate gore, so I had to look away for the torture scenes when he was skinning them. Oh my god! Like, I can handle most gore, but like just hearing the screams, that made me feel uncomfortable. I was like, yeah, no, I can't look at this. Like, what the hell? Well, at least, you know, for a horror film, that it actually delivered well done there. I really liked the Doctor and Samson. I wasn't expecting much of a Doctor, to be honest. Like, he had his role, served his role in the previous film, so I wasn't expecting him to come back. But it was so welcome, just seeing the Doctor and Samson basically bond in a way, and Samson basically gradually getting his memories back. That was really pleasant to see. Like, I wasn't expecting a friendship to form between those two. Seeing him gradually get his clarity back, him becoming more clean, more civilized once more, returning to his humanity. I really like that. And zombie films generally, when it comes to cures, they don't really handle it that well. If I'm so honest. Like, maybe they're racing to get the cure, or the cure has already been found. But what about the pathway to the cure? I just really like that, to be perfectly honest. Just seeing small, gradual changes. Oh, and that one moment when the doctor was saying that he was running out of morphine, and he was going to put Samson to sleep, and then he says, "Moon." I just really like that. It's like a small way of showing his progression out of a virus. The best way I can think of it was the Dr. Coulson not trying to find a cure for the virus, but rather to understand it, and in the process finding somewhat of a cure, because he cured the psychosis for Samson. It's a shame though when you look at what happens at the end, because I don't think there's ever going to be a proper cure. You saw what happened to Samson, but Dr. Coulson is dead now, so there's no way there's generally gonna be a cure unless they write it in somehow. I really do love it though when I get a horror series that generally makes you feel tense and anxious, because that's what this film made me feel. I didn't know what Jimmy Crystal was going to do. Yeah, one wrong move, could have resulted in anything happening. Like, I remember when Spike literally let that woman go. It was like, what the hell is going to happen to Spike? Spike's going to come out of this extremely traumatized, and he probably is extremely traumatized, like, at the end of the film. But it kind of shows, like, you shouldn't have run away from his home, because basically nothing good has happened to him since. Yeah, his mother has died. Yeah, he did take her out and try and look for a cure. Yeah, sure. Yeah, but he's run into all sorts of trouble. Yeah, run into the fingers. This guy's gonna come out with severe PTSD, and also at the end of the first film, why didn't you choose not to go back? Are you generally insane? But yeah, what can I say? My only real complaint about this film is probably because it feels incomplete, and also where it stands in comparison to the first film. That's my only real complaint, because it feels so disjointed. I like how the story's progressing, but it's just so disjointed in comparison to the first film. Like a film focusing on the Bone Temple, in the sense that, just like it felt like it's such a small segment on how it was paced. Like this pacing was a lot slower, but if at the same time it feels like not much has really happened. If you guess what I'm saying, so. That's my only real complaint, but I enjoyed it so much, I wanted more out of it, to be perfectly honest. But I wouldn't change what I got, to be honest. Maybe it'll hold up better as an overall series once these series of films conclude. Who knows? But there's this one scene with Samson. I just want to say that because he was one of the highlights of the film. I remember this one scene when he was just getting back his memories. He was on the train. He sat down on the train, and he remembered when he was on that train and he was asked for a ticket, and he was asked for a ticket, and and the first proper sentence that he spoke was, "I don't have a ticket." Class, like just like a proper transition back into him being who he was. And him fighting off the infected scared me a bit. I generally think, what is this guy gonna revert back to how he was? Like, some of what's called infected fluid went him, like, via blood. So I was thinking, like, oh wait, is he gonna revert back? But I thought that because I actually forgot that the psychosis was cured, and if the psychosis is cured, the virus is still there, but it's just like he can't be reinfected if the virus is still within him. He's normal because the psychosis is cured, so he doesn't have to worry about the psychosis returning, I assume. But that's only really a guess. I was so glad to see him fight off all the infected. Samson is a beast. And that's what I love him for being a beast. Yeah. Now, Alpha's are a really good part of a 28 Years Later series. I really will say. Kelly was okay. I remember her from Falcon and Winter Soldier. So it was a bit funny to see, like, she didn't really blend in that well with what's it called again, with the fingers that much. Like, she seemed a lot like a Falcon and Winter Soldier counterpart, like the person who she played. I'm forgetting the name. The name of who she played, but the role that she served, being more of a figure to Spike to protect him, I quite liked that. It was a bit weird seeing everyone the rest of her fingers get killed so easily. I can suppose that it was because they were under the influence of drugs that Dr. Kelson gave him when he was pretending to be Satan and basically doing that whole thing and trying to persuade the fingers that he was Satan / old Nick. That was something. It was a bit sad seeing Dr. Kelson die, I will say. But I'm very interested to see what will happen considering Spike, because Spike's story isn't finished. Samson's story isn't finished. Like, I remember seeing him walk off and thanking the doctor after the leaving. I don't know if he will remember how to do it. That wouldn't make sense. That's a bit too weird for the plot. I think the best way it should be is like, there will be no cure. It was close to a cure, and the best thing you got to a cure was with Samson. That's what I think. Or maybe Samson goes to some kind of medical treatment and they roll out a cure from now. I don't know. Zombie films. Overall, solid film. I'd give it about 7.5 out of 10, to be perfectly honest. I quite liked it. You know, I'm really looking forward to seeing another film in the franchise if they do one. I just wish that more people went out to watch it, to be honest, because it'd be a shame they didn't get enough money and they didn't discontinue the film series. Like, I wouldn't want that, no. But yes, that's it. Give a 4 down below if you've watched it. I should give a spoiler alert within this video. So basically you should avoid spoilers and such if you haven't watched it. But I'll see you around in the next video.